Hello!
Bloody hell, made me jump then.
Sorry.
Wasn't ready for that. I've been busy today. I'm tired.
Yeah, I'm a bit tired too.
But
It's been a hard day. It's been a
I've
hard
been
day.
out. It's been a hard day getting my hair done.
So this is not live. We are
Wish.
pre-recording this week because Freda's working. I've got some stuff I'm doing. So we decided to do it midweek and then put it out on Sunday.
Yeah, I just working Sunday, saving some money.
Yes.
Tits don't pay for themselves, so. Yeah, I went to Bolton today with my mum, and I've not been to Bolton town centre.
So what were you doing? A bit of shopping? A bit of post-Christmas shopping?
I was going to say Bolton's just as grim as I thought it was going to be. It was like the most miserable day, just chucking it down. But went to the market and I went to have my fringe cut in, and I had my nails done because I had them really long nails.
You had those claws before, yeah. You've gone.
They were just they just got So that was my day. I went to the fish market.
I saw your photos. There's some very weird looking stuff on those photos, like octopus.
I've no
cod
idea
roe, the size of a sheep. It was like, what on earth is that?
Big piles of sea offal. Prawns as big as my arm. But I know I didn't buy anything because I don't know what to do with it. I don't know. I like fish fingers, me.
Yeah, simple stuff. Yeah, just bung it in the oven.
Yeah,
I'm not sure who buys cod roe in those quantities. It's baffling. It was like a massive buckets full of the stuff. It's like, who buys that? And what for? What do you use that stuff for?
Chefs.
Chef food.
Who buys it? Yeah. So I wanted to say, I was on GB News talking about sports and stuff like that. So inevitably, when this hit the Twitter feed, there was the inevitable backlash. Most of it was just the usual rubbish about, men can't be women. Anyway, Sarah Fillmore was saying, what was it? The emergence of Freda Wallace as a talking head on various news channels.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange. I'll read it out to you. I've got it here. So it was. Hang on, let me just get it on my screen here. So the emergence of Freda Wallace as a talking head on various news channels is interesting.
So all our usual suspects, they all have one thing in common. And the main thing in common is transphobia. Now, they might hide that behind free speech, and they might say it's to do with sports, and they might say it's to do with women's rights, or whatever it is that they're peddling that week. But the common denominator is always to do with trans people. That's where their bread and butter is. So I thought, I'm going to put myself in the way of that conversation. And that's why I do it. It's not because,
there's not many trans voices you ever see on these kind of shows. Not that I watch them, but you don't really see a lot of trans people going on there because
why would you?
Because they're going to get harassed severely. You've been on, a few others have been on, but it's not. It's like we said before, it's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, well, the thing is, the only reason I know about these news channels and the only reason I know about these people is because I'm trans, and a lot of the aggression I see on Twitter directed at me is coming from those channels. Like, if you look at the comments section of any GB News or any Talk TV or it's on all sorts of channels as well, like, Jeremy Vine and things like that. The commentary is very narrow and it's very dumbed down. So if you put yourself into that burr pit, then I can't complain about being criticised, obviously, because I'm electing to be in that arena, right? But that doesn't make it right. That doesn't mean I shouldn't speak. But I think that I make my case isn't that I'm a trans person, and my case is that what you're saying is bullshit. And I'll tell you why it is if you want to listen, right? It's got nothing to do with being I'm not there as the trans person defending trans people or being trans. That's not the issue. The issue is that you're lying about something. You're pursuing a morally duplicitous argument in order to win over certain members of the public who are weak-minded. Not that they're weak-minded, it's just that the way that they posit the argument is always a fear narrative. Trans people are a problem. That is always the narrative. So if I can go in there and just be a trans person, but not necessarily talk, not talk from a defensive point of view, but simply talk from a a critical point of view,
Yeah.
like criticize the message. Not, I mean, there's a difference between like it comes out to this idea of the medium and then the message, and they're two distinct things. So right, you've got the message is there's this kind of invasion narrative, or there's some sort of negativity, like you see in the sports debate or the single sex spaces debate. It's like they believe that our rights are infringing on somebody else's rights, which isn't really the case. We getting more rights isn't taking rights away from somebody else. It's not like a cake. Correct. Where if we have a bit of that cake, you've got less.
No.
Yeah, a pie. Or cake. I prefer the cake thing.
I prefer pies, but anyway, same thing.
Cakes are sweet, but well, you know what I'm saying anyway. So, and then they've got the medium, which is like the medium is the way it's framed. GB News especially is it's like the audiobook of the Daily Mail, isn't it? So it's always the snappy headline. It's always the kind of, what do you call it? The money shot.
It's the easy money story.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Because you've got it. Because if you honestly, anything on social media now is like that because it's clickbait.
Yeah.
So you've got the clickbait element, and then you've also got the fear element, and you've got the shock element. Or because I'm sure they want me to go on there and be the trans activist. And I can play that. I can play that game, and I can be aggressive. I can shout, but
it's not about being aggressive and shouting. It's about coming across with the point of why they're wrong in what they say.
Yeah, but if I am aggressive, it's because I care about what I'm saying. It's not because I'm trying to upset somebody.
Yeah,
what I mean?
I mean, it's difficult to not get upset. So, and that's where the kind of the anger comes from, and you've got to kind of hold that in check while you're doing those things, and just make the points based on the facts and the law. I think that's the way to do it.
Well, this is why it always comes down to me for like a lot of these people who the basic thing they believe is that trans isn't really a thing, and that you can't change sex, and that men can't be women, and those really basic.
Yeah, they just cycle the same things all the time.
Baby talk, but I'm not interested in that. I'm like, yeah,
whatever.
My starting point is fine. I don't care if you believe that or not. What I care about is you weaponizing an argument to convince other people to feel the same way, right? Whereas most people, like we know in most walks of life, people just speak as they find. They don't really want to, hurt anybody. They understand that trans exists. They don't have to know the ins and outs about it. They just see you as a human being. If they've got any sort of politeness or humanity about them, they're not. I mean, if I talk to people at work about being trans all the time, but that's my choice because I'm open, and I make that my business to be open about it. But if somebody was to come up to me out the blue and start talking about trans issues, that would be a red flag, because I'm thinking, well, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
That's a different matter.
Yeah.
But
so
anyway,
I mean, yeah, I'll continue to do them. Obviously, we'll keep doing the reaction videos and see how it goes. I think.
Well, the thing that always comes across after I've done one of these, I always get a few really supportive messages. And the production teams at places like that always say, they want me to come back, because I think they have asked other trans people before and they've said no, because it's an hostile environment.
Yeah, you are putting yourself in a hostile environment.
Yeah.
And it's not a pleasant experience.
But because the way I handle it is, like I said, I'm not there to be trans. I'm there to be Freda, and I'm there to be the glitch in the matrix.
The glitch. You are the glitch.
I know, I love saying
So today
that.
we don't have a huge amount of topics today because we're kind of midweek. But there's a bit of a theme with our topics, I think, today. And it's all around, seems to be around direct action. And we've got probably at least 4 stories on that topic. Protest and direct action and what people are doing. So I shall switch to the smaller versions of me and Freda. This is, yes, so there we go, we've shrunk. bring in our first topic.
Just messing with my fringe, sorry.
Your fringe? You messing with your fringe?
Yeah, I messed it up before because I scratched my head. And so this is the important stuff. And you've got to get it right.
Sorry, we do need to talk about Freda's fringe.
We've done it now. Just right.
So first topic is you remember the story about the climate activists who threw soup on a Van Gogh picture, in the art gallery,
National Art
Gallery, onto the sunflower picture. Remember that one?
Yeah, I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, so obviously the picture.
You weren't too sure about it.
I wasn't too sure until I realised that the picture was protected by glass, and it wasn't damaged. So I would hate to feel as though that actually damaged a priceless piece of art, because that is probably going a bit too far, in my opinion. So the act of doing it, it still it gets the effect, and the effect is the publicity. Sticking their hands on the wall and all that sort of stuff. So what those two are now saying is that they're urging queer people to turn their anger into some kind of direct action. Yeah. So this is what I wanted to talk about with you, Freda, because we've spoken about this in the past.
Protests.
Protests, and what kind of direct action do you think that we could do? Based on some principles around what we shouldn't be doing, because I don't believe we should be affecting anybody, any individuals, innocent individuals who have nothing to do with it.
Well, to be honest,
but you should be affecting the people who are causing the problem, because there's another story we're going to talk about in a minute around Extinction Rebellion, who've changed tactics. But you see, I wouldn't really want to disrupt someone in their daily life. The life is hard as it is. They're trying to get to work, they're trying to get to school, they're trying to get to hospital. Yeah. They've got to lead their lives, and you disrupt them. You're not going to get their support for your cause. But if you can disrupt the people causing the problem that you're protesting about, maybe that's a better way of doing it. I know it's probably a bit controversial what I'm saying, because I know some people will say, do the direct action and affect everybody, and others will say don't affect innocents, just affect the people causing the problem. I don't know, there's probably a happy medium somewhere. For example, parking a white tank outside David Cameron's house, as we were discussing at the weekend with Vivienne Westwood, one of her protests, or sitting in the birdcage was another protest. Those weren't affecting anybody, but she got the point across. So I think that was kind of, that was good. And then we saw Peter Tatchell went over to Qatar. A one-man protest didn't affect anybody else, but he got his point over. So for me, those kind of things, I think they're more effective, because you get the publicity, you don't disrupt innocent people, and you still disrupt the people you wanted to.
Well, there's got to be a point that the reason these protests work is because they work in conjunction with the media. And
so the media connection is the key, isn't it?
Yeah, because we live in a world of very fast, very quick turnaround media now. So every news story has a very short shelf life, right? So you got to do, they know when they were doing this. There'd been a few other protests with throwing paint and throwing.
There was a few others on the back of this one.
Yeah, but they're not isolated. They're happening all the time. It's just sometimes we'll hear about them, and sometimes they'll be more effective than others. And the thing that makes them effective is you've got to have a shock value. You've got to have the priceless painting.
Yeah,
that's the
throwing the soup at the painting. Yeah, although it didn't actually do any damage.
But when I first heard this story, when it first broke, and I heard about these protesters throwing a can of soup on a Van Gogh, my first thought was, bloody hell, that is extreme. Because not only is it vandalism, it's vandalism of something that the culture has high regard for. Because obviously, being somebody that's interested in art history myself, I would have thought, but even if they had done it to the actual Van Gogh, I would have still supported the protesters. I wouldn't have said, how dare you destroy it? Because the thing is, right, the thing they believe in, I'm not interested in whether the cause is worth. I just enjoy the the chaos of it in a way. Because like you were saying before about, if it doesn't affect people going to work, why shouldn't it? So what if people can't get to work? We've got train strikes going on at the moment.
Yeah, I know.
Are they doing a protest? Is that a protest? It's the same kind of
It's
thing.
the same kind of thing, but that's a strike, and it also affects people. Yeah.
And you're saying you were saying about affecting innocent people. Well, these people would think there are no innocent people. And we're all complicit. We're all complicit in a capitalist paradigm.
I mean, their particular protest is just stop oil climate protesters, aren't they?
Yeah. But we see what the media will do is they'll look for hypocrisy, and they'll look for.
I mean, do you think about it? Throwing soup at a painting is nothing to do with oil, is it? It's like the shock factor, like you said. It's like, what can we do to get attention?
Yeah, but what the media will do, they'll look for hypocrisy and contradiction. So they'll say, "Oh yeah, like when do you remember the Occupy movement when they were outside the Bank of England on
in the tents.
Thread needles, and then there were certain newspapers that, but they were doing that, but they were going to Starbucks for a coffee. So obviously they don't. It's when it's like, what, people still need to drink coffee.
Still need to drink coffee.
There's no escape from the none of us are. We're all complicit in that, right? But when somebody does something like this, it's like that glitch in the Matrix, isn't it? Really, it is. Because it's like upsetting the flow of things. It's stopping people, because it stops people in the tracks, right? And there was this story about people sat on the M25 and stopping traffic, right? Yeah. And the thing that interests me,
I think that was Extinction Rebellion doing that.
Yeah.
It could have been just Stop Oil as well. I don't know the details now. I can't remember.
Well, yeah, it's different, but it's the same kind of tactic. So people were saying, there were ambulances that were stopped from getting, because they've always got to go for the moralistic, it's almost like they're telling those protests, you're responsible for people's deaths.
That is a very kind of gets to your core of your kind of belief system when somebody says that, because it makes you think. Maybe that's true. Maybe this protest did stop that ambulance, and that's a bad thing.
But it's not. It's a minor thing, because like I say, I know paramedics, and they'll tell you that the biggest problem for any ambulance is not protesters stopping the motorway.
Yeah, it's traffic.
Parked
cars and traffic.
There are a million obstacles in any potential situation for an ambulance. They will find a way, right? This isn't, in the scheme of things, it would be awful to think that somebody died as a result of that. Obviously that would be a bad thing, but I'm trying to get into the mind of the protester and thinking, well, in their mind, there's going to be millions of people dying if they don't do something about
cause and effect from other causes. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm not saying I necessarily I would be on board and I would do a protest like that.
But it's an easy way to attack the protesters because of that moral kind of thing. Yeah, and I can feel that. I feel that it works on me sometimes.
But with the tin of soup on a Van Gogh, I think that is a great
tin of soup on a Van Gogh. It doesn't harm any individuals, but you may have destroyed a priceless work of art, which could be a problem.
Yeah, and also to that, I would say, do you remember the protests in Bristol when it was a different thing altogether, because it was about
when they pulled the statues into them, threw them in the water.
Black Lives Matter.
No problem.
That was
absolutely that's perfect. Yeah.
That was brilliant, because what has happened there is a piece of furniture, just a piece of meaningless
street furniture. Yes.
Yeah, that meant nothing to anybody anymore.
Well, which is the statue of somebody who was involved with the slave trade.
Yeah, exactly. And
thrown in the water. That's right. That's where it belongs, in the water.
It was offensive.
Yeah.
To the children and the families of, if anybody knew the history, that would be offensive. But now, because the irony is that sculpture has become a bona fide work of art.
Well, I'm not sure what they've done with it. I think they pulled it out of the water and they're going to put it in a museum, aren't they?
It's in a museum in Bristol, right? Now, I made a case for this, that you know that empty fourth plinth outside the National Gallery?
Yeah.
They should exhibit it there. And not to, because it doesn't celebrate slavery anymore. What it does, it celebrates the
fact that it
idea.
was thrown in the water. Yeah.
It celebrates the power of people to change society. Now, we could argue that nothing has changed. People are just racist as they've ever been, and it's angered a lot of people. But as a cultural moment, as a thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to display it in that sense, then you could use it in that way, yeah.
Yeah, so I absolutely 100% back anybody that's got the bravery and the imagination, because it is imagination as well. It's like, because you could say, yeah, it's just vandalism, but there's something symbolic about a tin of soup and a painting worth $25 million.
I think it's worth more than that, actually. But anyway, yeah.
I think it might be. I think
I think it's like 70 million or something.
Well, yeah, it's one of the most expensive pieces.
Yeah.
And obviously it plays on a side note, the Campbell's soup thing with Andy Warhol.
No, it was Heinz. They used Heinz.
Yeah, I was hoping. Oh God, make because
they should have used Campbell's. They should have used Campbell's. Yeah.
But that's what tells me they weren't art students. but I'm all for this kind of thing, and it's not because I don't respect art or I don't respect people going about the daily life or people that need ambulances. It's just that I think sometimes if you're going to do a protest, you can't be half-arsed about it. So I was thinking, gosh, would this be valid from a trans point of view or a gender point of view? Would we, like, say if I was to devise a protest to it? But you see, the thing is with this, like, the difference is for me is like the whole gender debate and the whole turf thing is a complete nonsense to me. It's not even worth protesting. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to be very specific around what you were doing it for.
It would have to be something like a law was passed, or the government decided to remove all trans healthcare. Yeah. Now, what I would do, I don't want to reveal any of my sort of.
Like if the government, if the English government does something about this Scottish GRA reform, if they try and cancel that in some way, that will be worthy of some kind of direct action, in my opinion.
But the thing is, they've got to know that you're serious about your message, and that is the point. I mean, it's no point in standing with placards outside. I mean, I'm not saying there's no point. I mean, that's not me saying that people that do that are wasting their time. Obviously, they're not. But for me, it wouldn't be effective. I was going to say I recorded a load of canned laughter. Right, that you could just press play on your phone, and there's a big Bluetooth speaker hidden somewhere. Yeah. So the person that is seen as the kind of, like say somebody's spouting some nonsense transphobe, every time they said a paragraph, just press go on the laughter, and they don't know where this laughter's coming from, but it's really loud.
That would be very effective, actually.
Yeah, but that's an audio protest. It's like you see, to get in the media, for a protest to reach the media, it has to be visual, because you're talking about. I
mean, for the people at that protest, that would be annoying if you're on the other side, and really amusing if you're on.
Well, see, one of the things have you heard of that group called Led by Donkeys?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, what I would get if I could afford it would be one of those massive projectors that you can put onto the side of a building.
Yeah, because that's a really effective way of doing it, because it's very visual.
But then it has to be dark. That's the problem with it. Yeah.
Right,
so that's why the sound idea appealed to me, because you're projecting sound into the atmosphere, because that changes the mood of everything.
It does.
And when these people are so pompous and they think the words are so important, the way to really diffuse it
is having somebody laughing in the background.
Yeah, and everybody will join in that laughter because it's infectious.
It would become infectious. It would. Right, so let's scroll down to the next story, which was the Extinction Rebellion tweet.
Yeah, this podcast is really about protests today, isn't it?
It's a podcast about protests. It's not a protest about podcasts. Anyway, so Extinction Rebellion had put out a tweet. I think it was a couple of days ago now. We quit is what they said. Our New Year's resolution is to halt our tactics of public disruption.
Can I just stop you there a minute? Yeah. I'm just really not happy with my fringe. I'm sorry. It was really nice.
Is your fringe protesting?
I'm going to protest about fringes. Right, go on, carry on as you were.
So, yeah, interrupting me there. Our New Year's Eve resolution is to halt our tactics of public disruption. Instead, we call on everyone to help us disrupt our corrupt government. So what they're doing, they're calling for a protest on the 21st of April outside Parliament and expecting 100,000 people to show up and do a protest that way. So I think what's happened here is that they've come to the conclusion that what they've done so far, although it may have been effective, it's upset a lot of people.
Yeah.
And they've got to the stage where we need to change our tactic now to get more people on board so we can have a bigger effect. So they've already become kind of infamous, famous, however you look at it.
Do you think
But now they need more people to support them, so they've switched tactics, which is quite interesting how they've done that.
But do you think that's what they're doing? Because when I saw
I don't know. That's my first impression.
Yeah, because when you put a big sign up that says "We quit," that means there's something brewing.
Yeah, we quit. I mean, it's like a fake advertising, isn't it? It's like we quit, but we're not really quitting. We've changed the tactics behind the scene.
Mm. Yeah. This reminds me of something that Bill Drummond would do.
So they've quit doing the public disruption, is what they're saying, and we're switching to we want to disrupt the corrupt government directly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is, right? I suppose there's only so much energy.
Yeah, exactly.
So much, but I think this year, right? I mean, I don't want to predict any. I'm not Nostradamus, but I think it's going to be I think it's going to be a really bumpy year politically.
Yeah, probably.
And I think there's a lot of shit that's going to hit the fan. And I think if we have a really hot summer this year, because there's a correlation between protest and weather. And if you get a lot of long, hot summer, historically, that's when riots happen.
Yeah, how are you predicting a riot?
I predict a diet. Get state of me.
I can join you in that.
I'm not predicting anything. I'm just saying they just see because we're ready.
Well, there seems like a lot of things are pointing towards major disruption this year because elections coming up.
I'm just putting my wet finger up to the wind.
No, but we've still got all these strikes going on. We've got economy in a collapse. We've got a lot of people upset. We've got an election coming. It's heading that way, isn't it?
A lot of people upset. I love how you just sort of downplay it.
No, but that's what it is.
There's a lot of people upset. There's a lot of people angry.
Angry, they are.
And I mean, I'm a fairly moderate, chilled out person, but I look at my mum shouts at me all the time because I'll sit sometimes and watch Jeremy Vine with my mum, and I will not shut up for the whole thing.
I'm with you, mum. I'd shout at you too.
I just shout, but what's the point in shouting at the telly, right? So, I mean, if it came down to it, and I had to be involved in some kind of extreme protest, I'd be the first there, right? But
you do have a megaphone.
But that's but I think that there's going to be a breaking point where people who are moderate, people that say.
Well, you can only put up with so much. There comes a point where you stop being quiet and just going along with stuff, and you start to react.
The government always know that they're in a state of equilibrium between tension and break. That breaking point. So the inertia of that is something they want to hold on to. So they'll pump. The way they control it historically is by interest rates. And I don't want to get all boring about that, but once that starts to fail, and you see it in other countries where the bottom falls out of the economy and people try and withdraw all the money and things like that, and there's a run on the back. Yeah. I don't want to wish the worst case scenario, but I am fearful that these protests you saw last year, like Extinction Rebellion and Just Stop Oil, they're just the tip of the iceberg.
They are.
And people in a couple of years' time will look back and go, "Gosh,
it's progressive, isn't it? It's gonna get worse before it gets better. Is what I think."
But if all protest is see, like I said, these things become like media things, and if all protest becomes performative, and all protest just becomes about that moment, then it won't change anything. It's like the whole thing with the Occupy movement. There was a moment in 2014 or I can't remember when it was now, but when people were marching on Wall Street, and it happened here as well in Threadneedle Street. And you thought for a moment, Christ, these people are going to overthrow the system, and it just kind of all of a sudden kind of like, yeah, back to normal now. And I was like, yeah. So you never know what's
you don't know. No,
it's like I said, it's
but
about
it's an interesting thing that they're doing there, Extinction Rebellion.
Yeah, but
Curious to see what happens with that.
I just want there to be some kind of clearing of the air in a way. It's kind of like the storm has to come to know what we're left with.
Yeah.
And that's how it feels. I don't want to be all scary and like...
No, but interesting. It's an interesting change of tactic. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, I think they're planning something.
So, moving on to the next one. Next story is about Peter Tatchell.
Oh, yeah. I watched the Netflix.
So
what was it called?
It's called Hating Peter Tatchell. So, Peter is a well-known... I don't know. Would you call him a protester?
He's a one-man
protester.
He's a LGBT.
Yeah, he's LGBT.
But he's old school. He's from that old gay liberation movement that was quite narrow in its.
He's involved in a lot of the original protest movements.
He's got a few blind spots, but I think overall, after watching that documentary, I'd say he's an individual that is like what we're saying about protests. Yeah. He puts himself in the line of fire.
He does. I mean, he's saying there in his tweet, 56 years I've confronted bigots, 3,000 protests, 100 arrests, 300 violent assaults, 50 attacks on my flat and thousands of death threats, but I'm still campaigning. I mean, if you watch that movie on Netflix, he has been through a lot of
I must admit, I didn't know too much about him. I did know about him, obviously, because he's always sort of popping up, isn't he, when he's doing his
all kinds of protests.
But when I did speak about him once on Twitter, there was somebody saying, "Oh, he's not an ally," and I was like, "That's a bit weird. Why would he not be an ally?" And when I looked a bit more into it, he was saying that everybody should be able to speak whatever they want to speak.
Yeah, I think some of those comments are related to non-platforming at universities. I think he was embroiled in something around that. And I think his position is that he would prefer to have people come to those events so he can debate them and expose their positions rather than excluding them. And then you can't kind of challenge them.
I kind of agree with that.
I mean, I kind of agree with it in a way, but then I also see it from the other side where you shouldn't be platforming people who are coming out with hate speech. So I understand it both ways.
It depends on the situation.
It depends on the situation and what the topic is.
Like somebody if you work for an organisation.
I mean, you shouldn't platform somebody without challenging them. That's obviously.
Yeah. I mean, is it Oxford University? They do talks, don't they? And they famously invited Tommy Robinson, and that obviously. Yeah. So what is the argument for platforming somebody like Tommy Robinson? Like, because is there any value to it? That's the question, and we know what he stands for. We don't want him to make a case where he can redeem himself, because even if he could redeem himself, the stuff he's done in the past, it already speaks volumes about. Unless he's a changed man, unless he suddenly had some kind of epiphany.
I don't think so.
But that's not. There's no value in it really. But it is.
But if you can platform somebody like that and then have somebody else come on and basically tell you why that person's wrong, challenge that person's opinions.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a good thing, because everybody gets to hear the truth of the argument.
No, I don't know. I don't
know.
So.
It's a bit of a hard one to call.
The way I see it is, the good thing is, like, the argument would be like, yes, this guy exists. So let's give him enough room to convict himself.
Yeah.
That would be the argument for me. So like, yeah, Tommy, or whatever, whoever it is. I'm not going to compare people, because what Tommy Robinson does and what J.K. Rowling does are two different things. But if you could put them in a place, okay, tell us what you believe. Just tell us basically what it is you're about, and let them. Because it would
let them dig their own hole.
Yeah, but it would become very clear quickly whether they're duplicitous or they're genuine.
They would expose them. It would.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really where Peter's coming from.
But obviously people can lie, can't they, in a situation like that, and present a version of what they believe that could be moderate, and then keep the meat and potatoes of it.
Yeah, he also did an interview on Channel 4, which was really good. Have you listened to that? It was.
I've not. No.
It was around the same time. I think this movie's been out a couple of years. I think the interview was a couple of years ago too. But he was just reposting them on Twitter. And I noticed them. I wasn't aware of the fact that this movie existed. So it's quite an interesting one. And some of the things he's done is quite eye-opening.
You see, I think it's interesting that he puts himself in these...
He puts himself in all kinds of really dangerous situations.
I mean, and it's like I said, because you have to get the media spotlight and the cameras on it, you have to do that.
But not only that, but he's also getting results from what he's done as well. He's not just the protest and not just the attention. He's making change through his action, through his direct action, and the things he does, and putting himself on the line. He's actually getting change made as well, which is. But I mean, that's the key, isn't it? What he's doing is he's causing changes, which is good.
Yeah, I think with the way I approach things, it's like if I find out, like, say somebody's doing a talk and I disagree with that person,
for example, Harry Miller's coming up soon and we're doing a talk in Manchester.
Yeah, so there's two ways.
Are you going to go and attend that?
Well, the thing is, I want to talk to him.
Well, you're not going to be able to talk to him on that day.
No, but I want. The thing is, the idea is to record what he says as in a journalistic capacity. But I know there's going to be probably people might be protesting outside, something like that. So I always think, well, because his whole thing is about this idea of free speech. He doesn't. Yeah. It's not really about that. He wants he's become some kind of folk hero for free.
It's free speech from his point of view.
But I've got the free speech to challenge him, right? And I have no fear about doing that. But the problem is...
You're not going to be able to do that in that environment, in that theatre, on that night, though.
No, but I would approach him.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't get anywhere near him. He's going to have security. There's going to be... I don't think it's going to be possible to... get to talk to him on the night.
I'd do it in a clever way, but I wouldn't be confrontational.
No.
But you see, the worry I have is if there's a counter protest to that event, am I on the wrong side of that divide? Because really, I should be protesting it. But my protest is to get in there.
This is one of the arguments, though, isn't it? I mean, I think this is mentioned in Peter's movie, where there's two ways of doing things, and it's best to do both of them. So you do the protests outside, and you're also on the inside having the conversation.
Yeah. So
you do both. So you're attacking the problem from two angles at the same time. I think it's more effective. So you've got like part of your organisation is outside doing the protest, and the other part of the organisation is talking to the enemy. I mean that's quite an effective way of doing it.
Well, I don't have an organisation. It's just you and me, Vic.
All right. So who wants to go inside? Who wants to go outside?
Well, the thing is, though, with these people's arguments, they're very flimsy, and I mean, I'm a free speech advocate. I think if you've got. But the thing is with that, it's like it's always assumed that the speech they want is some kind of noble cause, like they're fighting against something. They're not. They're mouthing something that is not controversial because it's not. It doesn't take bravery to hate people. It don't take bravery to be transphobic. What would be brave if he was challenging a status quo, and he isn't. He's pandering to it. That's why he gets all over these tabloid things. It's like his whole argument is based on this idea that he was banned on Twitter, or he was the police came to knock on his door because he was harassing trans people and saying stupid things about trans people on Twitter, and he's made it his life's work now. It's like a vendetta he's got because he can't accept the fact that he was wrong. because he never got his free speech taken away, obviously, because he's doing this.
He's doing his appearance in Manchester, yeah.
But when he gets called out, he doesn't like it because
it's going to be interesting to see how well attended this thing is.
Probably not very well.
Probably not.
But
it is Manchester he's coming to, and we are well known for our, LGBT rights in this town. So
I haven't even spoke to anybody about a protest against.
I've not heard of anything. I don't even know when's it coming up. Is it recent? Is it coming up pretty soon?
I think it's mid-February.
Mid-February. Right.
I'll look at it, but I'm not going to say anything about what I'm going to do.
No.
But I'm not. It's not my intention to intimidate or harass anybody. I'm just interested in being a kind of citizen journalist in a way. I just like being in that moment of something and collecting the information, and then I will challenge somebody. I will say, well, what? Yeah. Because recently Harry Miller was on that BBC thing, the Reef Lectures.
Yes,
and what was it now?
His question was shut down.
Well, it was about free speech. The lecture. I'm just looking at I can't remember how to pronounce.
Can't remember the lady's name, but she basically shut him down.
Amanda Ngozi Adichie.
Yeah.
And he made a fool of himself.
He
did. And Kathleen Stock was there as well. And she asked a question later. And when I heard her question, I thought, she's altered that question because she heard the response to Miller.
Mm.
I did write about I transcribed the whole thing.
Yeah, it didn't work out well for him at all.
No, because his point, I don't want to dwell too much on Harry Miller, but his whole point is that if you don't use your free speech...
But he was asking the question expecting her to totally agree with him, and she just no, that's wrong.
No, because she knows he's coming from a bad place with it. He's coming from the idea of being belligerent. And that is, whatever,
Yeah. Right, moving on then. Next story. This was an interesting one. Black Eyed Peas doing New Year's Eve concert in Poland, and they were wearing rainbow armbands during the performance. Now this is, Poland is quite well known for its anti-LGBT laws at the moment. Now we have Black Eyed Peas doing a bit of a protest. I guess this is similar to what people were trying to do at the Qatar World Cup thing. They were trying to protest.
I've got to be honest with you. The only ones of the Black Eyed Peas I know is William.
Will.I.am,
Fergie. I don't call him Will.I.am.
It kind of ties into what we were talking about last week about Will.I.am on the the kids version of the.
I quite like William.
Will.I.am. Yeah.
He's got a mate, who's an electrician called Electric Ian.
So I thought it was good to see them doing that. I don't have the picture there, but there's not much of a story to it other than they were wearing their armbands. Just what I thought I'd mention that one. Bit of a protest. It's kind of that's like a really simple protest. Doesn't hurt anybody, but it makes the point.
If you're big media people, they're a massive band, aren't they? So when a big celebrity or anybody with that kind of media profile does
it gets noticed. It's in it's in the news. So
it's a bit like, it goes back to me thing about Taylor Swift and the way she holds a pen.
Yeah, exactly.
In that way, that's a protest. I'm not sure if it's a protest.
It's not a protest, but it got in the news.
That's what I mean. So a celebrity only has to make a tiny
all they
gesture.
All they have to do is breathe, and they're in the news.
Yeah. So that's my plan. I'm going to get really famous. So all I've got to do is have a sticker on my head or something.
Yeah. Good idea.
It'd save me a lot of time.
Freda Wallace was in the news. She had a sticker on her head. Yeah.
Or just do me fringing and a diagonal. That would, I don't know.
We've had another major celeb
tattooed on my face
remove themselves from Twitter. And this was Bill Bailey, hounded off Twitter. After being targeted by so-called gender-critical activists. Now, whether he's back on again now, I don't know, but this was a few days ago now.
I'm just checking because I'm sure he reappeared.
He may have come back. Who knows? But I think this was related somehow to Graham Linehan.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, not him again. You know what? He's been on Twitter today trying to harass.
I think
Gary
Graham
Lineker
was harassing Bill Bailey, and some of Graham's followers were harassing Bill Bailey, and that's why he disappeared off. Whether he's come back now, I don't know.
He's back on.
Okay, so he's back. But, it just shows you, we've had several large accounts, big celebrities leave recently due to harassment related to gender crits and their kind of hound dogs that come after you on these pylons.
Attack dogs.
Attack dogs, yeah. So it's, another one.
Well, I saw Graham Linehan today, and
You saw him?
On
what,
Twitter,
in Bolton Market?
Yeah, the fish market.
What was he doing, buying some fish?
Yeah, I was like... He was moaning because there was rainbow trout. No.
Oh, God.
No, I saw him on Twitter, and he was harassing Gary Lineker
What was he saying to Gary
talking
Lineker?
about women, trans women in female sports.
Okay.
And obviously, this is what Graham Linehan does. He writes to people, he hassles them, he harangues them, and he thinks he's trying to pique them into this debate where most comedians, whatever, they either don't care enough about it, or they just accept that, trans people are not a problem because they probably know somebody online who is. And that's the problem with people like Graham Linehan, because they have to keep getting more and more moralistic with their arguments. They can't just say, like I said before, if Graham Linehan or any of these people wanted to just say, I don't think trans women are women, I'd be like, fine, go. I'm not trying to convince you. Exactly. But it doesn't end there with them. What they've got to do then is go, right, I've got to prove, I've got to make the case for...
Yeah, so anybody who says anything positive, like Graham, he's on them straight away. He's aggressively on them.
You can't understand that there's a difference between biological reality and the way human beings interact as human beings.
Now, prior to Graham Linehan coming back on Twitter, I know he's recently been let back on by you-know-who. I didn't really, I had his account blocked previously. Never really looked at what he was posting. I'm now looking, and it's constant anti-trans things. He doesn't talk about anything else.
No, he's gone full on now. I had a bit of a run-in with him just after Christmas because...
Get a life, Graham.
I commented on something, and he said something about me being a grim handmaiden.
Yeah, I saw that.
So he obviously thought at that moment that I was a cis woman.
I told him to crawl back under the rock he came from. But he didn't.
Right, so what that demonstrates is that when women who he believes are cis disagree with him, he will attack them because he's misogynistic. No, and then when he realised I was trans, he'll attack me in that way. So the only thing that interests Graham Linehan is convincing the world of his ideology, and it is an ideology. It's him that has the ideology. Yeah. And it's the people he surrounds himself with, like what's she called, Helen Staniland. Mm-hmm. I've been on her Twitter feeds, and people. Well, there was one that I was involved in. I was chatting, saying, well, having the usual discussion about the nature of reality, what is a woman, that kind of thing, which I'd sometimes go in for. And somebody was saying, well, there's different breeds of dog. It doesn't mean that all breeds. I was like, why are you so you're going to use the analogy of animals now? So you've already dehumanized me. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because the point they were trying to make was that, because I was saying, well, you can't. They'll find these images of like the worst, most abhorrent people. Like, say there was a trans woman who was a rapist, and then make a case that says like that's the problem. And then they, you know what I mean? It's like they go to these extremes because their actual arguments don't work.
Yeah.
If there was a basic argument that said, oh yeah, well, trans women are not, we're not what we are. We're pretending. It's all a myth. Then we'd have that. We'd know that. But it isn't. Nothing is that simple. Mm. And obviously our identities are legitimate. Yeah. Because we exist in the world as we are. We know what biological reality is. You don't have to keep going on about it.
Exactly.
But this is why I use these phrases. Like I'll sometimes say, as a sperm-producing female, I find you offensive. Because I'm leaning into that ridiculousness of the argument. And they all turn around and say, oh, this one thinks there's such a thing as female semen. Well, I'll tell you what. it's in my reality. That is the reality. Because being
Indeed.
female is not based in biology.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, but it messes with their heads a bit because there is a dissonance, an argument, there is a discussion to be had on a philosophical level, but they can't have it on the philosophical
No.
level because they've already filled themselves full of nastiness.
Bile.
You know what I mean? They can't have a debate where you would have a reasonable kind of psychological element, and then you've got the, you know, and endocrinology. I think there's a lot of missing links between our nervous system and brains and the body, and you've got to think about holistically what it is to be a human being, and they can't have that argument because they're so full of this kind of rage. Men can't be women. That's what I mean. Just like they just want to repeat that constantly on Twitter. They should just sign up for Twitter and make 1,000 tweets that
Yeah.
say that,
Yeah.
and then just leave.
Yeah.
Because that's all they ever do.
Please. I hope they would do that. Okay, our last story is it's a good news story actually. This one is about the Naked Calendar.
Oh yeah, you purchased a calendar.
I did purchase a calendar.
Have you got it there?
It's in the kitchen.
Oh, you're not going to show us?
Well, I'm going to show you the pictures on that's behind us. So this is a Naked Calendar celebrates beauty and autonomy of trans bodies. We're gorgeous, and I love who I am. So this organisation is FORT.LONDON.com, I think it is, or it might be UK. I'll check in a minute. But they've produced this calendar. It's not really a calendar in the sense of a calendar where you have the little boxes at the bottom with the dates and the days and the weeks. It's got the days around the edge. So it's really more about producing an arty image.
Right.
So there's and it's big. It's like A3 size. So I got one of these, and the money is going towards creating this space in London. I've got the web page here, so
it looks really interesting. It looks like a sort of photography and performance space.
So
and I love anything like that.
Here's the website, and it's let me just check what the actual address is.
We're gonna have to go to London if this gets going, and I want to visit.
Yeah, I'd like to go and see this.
Maybe I could do one of my spoken word things.
It's a bit small, so I'll read out So this is just read out what it's for. A fort is a protected space of rest and nourishment. We cannot grow, heal and create in the middle of a battle. We need room, we need safety, we need each other. Fort is a multi-practice, non-profit, sober, queer, creative space in the heart of London, containing a consent-led and trauma-informed tattoo massage studio, an art print shop, a print workshop and a production house. We will tell our own stories and we will celebrate our own lives on our own terms, by us, for us. So
sounds great.
Yeah, so if you buy one of these calendars, they're not cheap, they're £30 each, but the money goes towards the production of the calendar and also to support this place that they're building. So I thought that was a really good positive thing to end on. The quality of the calendar is really amazing. There's a bit of an image for you.
Yeah. Well, this reminds me of I like any sort of creative.
Thought you'd like this because it's quite arty.
Cooperatives, like because I know of Islington Mill in Manchester, and it's just like there's like a print shop there, and there's like a performance space there, and Cheddar Gorgeous, who came second in drag. They have what they call the drag lab there.
Oh, right.
And they've just got this massive room, and all their outfits are in there.
Oh, we need to go there. We need to go there.
And it's just brilliant because I had a studio there for a while when I shared it with my friend Joe and Lou, and it's just a great place to be, because you're sort of mingling with people that are doing all these different creative things all the time, and the conversations are always really positive, and surrounding yourself with people that are, that they've all got their own individual skills. Like there was a video studio in there, and they used to film all the live gigs that happen there and stuff like that. So, and now we're like in Manchester, there's quite a few things like that. That's why I like Manchester, because it's a very creative community.
Yeah, and you know where Affleck's is. So just kind of down the road from there, a bit north of where that is. There's an old, I think it's an old church.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called, but that's full of like little RT shops and things. It's similar
do you mean the craft centre?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's an old fish market.
Is that a fish market? It looks like a church.
It used to be a fish market.
Oh, fish markets have come up in conversation twice today.
Smithfield Market. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But I was going to say the Feel Good Club. That's another.
That's not far from there.
So I want to be doing some more gigs soon, hopefully. So.
Right. So the megaphone's coming out again, is it?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what to do yet because I do like to mix it up and do something fresh for each thing. So I'll see.
So anyway, back to the calendar. If you've got a spare 30 quid,
yeah, it's
highly
quite
recommend
expensive.
that. It's quite expensive, I know, but it's for a good cause. Other good causes are available.
I mean, I kind of want to go and visit because I was reading the website. It sounds really good.
It does. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I like talking about protests and stuff, but I must admit I'm a very much a sort of outside observer because like a lot of like my friends when they go on protests and things like that, I mean I find it difficult to get into that because I'm more of a recorder of things. You know what I mean? I'm there. I like to be there, but I'm recording what's going on. I'm not part of the. Well, I think that's my approach with everything. Really, I'm sort of more of a. I always feel like I'm watching the telly when I'm in real life. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's just how my brain works. I'm slightly detached from things. Like if I'm out, like I was out in a club last night. I'm partly there, but part of me is like a fly on the wall, and I'm watching what's going on, and might be something to do with the way my brain works.
Probably.
Or doesn't work.
The good news is that you have a brain, and it's apparently it's working. I mean, that's the good news.
I'll just switch it on again. Oh. So yeah.
So that I mean that.
So we've done the podcast recorded because I'm busy this weekend. We wanted to keep it going on a Sunday though.
But it will be going out on the usual at the usual time on Sunday. So yeah.
So marvelous. It's Sunday now, isn't it?
It's not yet. It's Sunday.
We're in Sunday now.
Yeah, it's Sunday.
Don't mess with the space-time continuum.
It may be too late. You've already confused me. So please like and subscribe. There's the subscribe thing.
Don't forget to subscribe. I need to record that jingle.
Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you for listening to me nonsense.
I think next week we'll be back to our usual live schedule.
Yeah.
So we'll see you then.
Bye for now.
Tatty bye. Bye. One, five,